Hey everyone, welcome back. I know for a lot of you, you're all about like getting the most out of every year, and today's deep dive, it's really gonna, I think, equip you with some pretty interesting tools for doing just that.
Yeah.
We're gonna be exploring these really unique personal checklists, kind of like think of them as a roadmap,
Yeah.
to evaluate how this past year has gone, and how to set intentions for what's coming up next.
Yeah. The interesting thing is these checklists, they were actually created by a man named Rick,
Okay.
and they're based on Christian principles. But even if that's not your background, definitely stick with us.
Yeah.
The concepts are so universal and adaptable that you can totally apply them to your own life, whatever your beliefs may be.
That's so cool. This whole thing really intrigued me too, to be honest.
Yeah.
So Rick starts off with this concept of seasons,
Oh.
basically saying that while God might not be like marking days off on a calendar,
Hmm.
we humans definitely do, and those dates can kind of represent real transitions for us.
Yes, and it's like we all get that feeling of a fresh start, right? When a new year begins.
Totally.
Rick even quotes a verse from Ecclesiastes. It says, "To everything there is a season." And I think that really resonates with people. That deep desire we all have to live with purpose and make sure our time is meaningful. It's like we all feel that.
Right. And speaking of purpose, Rick believes that God reveals his plans for us,
Yeah.
like in stages rather than all at once.
Oh, interesting.
It's sort of like we're given the knowledge we need for the particular season of life that we're in,
Hmm.
rather than some massive, overwhelming, plan for our entire lives.
And isn't that relieving?
Yeah,
Like, it takes the pressure off of having to figure everything out right now.
totally.
You can focus on what's right in front of you, knowing that you'll be given more clarity when you need it, I'm imagining. Our listeners are probably nodding their heads right now.
Right.
It's this incremental revelation, as Rick calls it, that makes it manageable, for our learners who want to take in information without being overwhelmed.
That makes a lot of sense. So how does this incremental revelation thing actually work? Can you give us like an example?
Sure, think about it this way. Maybe you've been feeling drawn to learn a new skill this year.
Okay.
And somehow the perfect resources and opportunities just seem to land in your lap. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a chance encounter with someone in that field, or you stumble upon a book or a course that perfectly addresses what you needed to learn. It could be that this is incremental revelation in action, guiding you toward your purpose, like step by step.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
So to break down this whole like life checkup,
Yeah.
Rick outlines 7 key areas:
Okay.
spiritual, financial, physical, internal, which he calls soul, relationships, personal development, and global missions.
Wow.
Phew, that covers a lot of ground.
It does. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's like taking a holistic approach to evaluating how you're doing.
Yeah.
It goes way beyond, your typical New Year's resolution list.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that all of these areas are interconnected, and achieving real progress means tending to your well-being across all facets of life, not just chasing isolated goals.
Definitely puts things in perspective. Okay, so let's jump into the first area, spiritual progress.
Okay.
I know we have a really diverse group of listeners, so even if, someone isn't especially religious, how can they connect with this idea?
Well, one thing that Rick really emphasizes is this idea of discernment.
Okay.
Basically, it's about learning to recognize the right guidance for you, not just taking in every bit of advice or opinion that comes your way.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how much information we're bombarded with on a daily basis. It's overwhelming, right?
Right.
Discernment can help you cut through the noise and make decisions based on what truly resonates with you.
Mm-hmm.
You could even argue that it's essential for personal growth, regardless of your spiritual beliefs.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
It's almost like developing a filter for your life.
Oh.
But instead of filtering out bad things, you are filtering for the things that are going to help you grow, make the best choices, be the best version of yourself.
That's a great way to put it. It's like fine-tuning your inner compass.
I like that.
And I think that ties in with Rick's concept of spiritual milestones.
Okay.
It's not about adhering to a specific religious doctrine. It's about those moments of growth or insight that we all experience,
Yeah.
Those moments when you suddenly realize something about yourself or the world, and it shifts your perspective, in a profound way.
Exactly. Those aha moments.
Yeah.
Maybe you finally had the courage to set a boundary with someone who wasn't treating you well, or maybe you had sudden clarity about what truly matters to you in life.
Right.
Those can be considered spiritual milestones too, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And these milestones, no matter how small they may seem,
Yeah.
they contribute to our spiritual development and shape who we become.
So true. Okay, I'm ready to move on to the next area. Financial progress. Now, I know that Rick definitely comes at this from a God-centric point of view, but I'm curious to see what, like, universal financial principles we can pull out of his approach. What stood out to you?
Well, the first thing that struck me was the order of financial priorities he lays out.
Right.
He emphasizes sowing first, then saving, and finally spending. It's pretty different from the typical budgeting advice you hear, isn't it?
It is. Isn't that a little idealistic, though? Most people, I think, prioritize, like, paying their bills and saving before giving money away.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work for people who are living paycheck to paycheck?
I understand your point, but think about it this way. Like, Rick isn't saying to give away money you need for survival.
Right.
When he talks about sowing, he's talking about investing in something bigger than yourself.
Okay.
It could be charitable giving or supporting a cause you believe in. Maybe you even consider it like investing in your own personal development as a form of sowing.
Mm.
It's about shifting your mindset from scarcity to abundance, believing that by contributing to something meaningful, you're inviting more abundance into your life.
That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's less about the specific dollar amount and more about, like, aligning your financial decisions with your values and purpose.
Exactly. When you have a strong why behind your spending, it takes on a whole new meaning.
Yeah.
It becomes less about acquiring things and more about making a positive impact.
I love that. Okay, let's move on to the next group of areas, which are all um, focused on well-being.
Okay.
We've got physical, internal, soul, and relationships. These are all so important.
They are. And Rick beautifully connects these areas with a statement that really made me think.
Wow.
He says, "You will never have life prosperity beyond the level of your soul prosperity."
Wow, what does that even mean? Can you elaborate on that a bit? I think our listeners would be fascinated to hear, like, how you interpret that.
That's such a powerful statement, isn't it? It invites us to look inward and ask ourselves what true, like, soul prosperity even means.
Yeah.
Is it about inner peace, a sense of purpose, having fulfilling relationships? These are personal questions that we each have to answer for ourselves, but I think the implication is clear.
Yeah.
If we neglect our inner world, we limit our potential for outward success and happiness.
Makes me think about that saying, hurt people hurt people.
Right.
If you're not taking care of your own inner world, your own, soul prosperity, as Rick
Yeah.
says,
Mm-hmm.
you can't possibly show up as your best self in other areas of your life, whether it's your career, your health, or your relationships.
Right.
It's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
That's a great analogy. It's a
Yeah.
reminder that true well-being starts from within and radiates outwards.
Totally.
And the journey to cultivating that soul prosperity, while it might be challenging at times,
Yeah.
it's incredibly rewarding.
Okay, so we've covered quite a bit already.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say we take a quick pause here and come back to explore the last two areas of the checklist in part 2?
Sounds like a great plan. We'll be back in a moment.
Awesome.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were diving deep into Rick's holistic checklist, exploring the spiritual and financial areas, and even uncovering the profound concept of soul prosperity.
Yeah, it's amazing how much ground we've already covered.
It really has, and I have to say I've been so impressed by how thoughtfully you've been engaging with these concepts. You're asking all the right questions,
Oh, thank you.
and I think our listeners are really benefiting from your insights.
We'll have to give credit where credit is due. You've been an incredible guide through this material.
Oh,
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on how to approach the end of the year and honestly how to approach life in general.
I'm so glad to hear that.
So we've still got 2 more areas of the checklist to explore,
Right.
personal development and global impact. These seem to be a bit more outward focused, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I see these two areas as being interconnected. It's about the skills and knowledge we cultivate and then how we use them to make a positive impact on the world around us.
Okay.
It's like taking all that inner work we've been talking about and turning it outwards.
I love that. So what sorts of questions or prompts does Rick offer in these areas?
He keeps it pretty simple, but the questions are powerful.
Okay.
He asks, how have you participated in spreading good? And in what ways have you supported those in need?
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that he doesn't specify that this has to be tied to any religious affiliation or activity.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get caught up in the idea that we need to be doing these grand gestures to make a difference.
Right.
But it sounds like Rick is encouraging us to look at the smaller, everyday actions that can ripple outwards and have a positive impact.
Exactly. Maybe you volunteered at a local soup kitchen, donated to a charity that resonates with you,
Yeah.
or simply made an effort to be kinder and more compassionate to the people you encounter in your daily life.
Yeah.
Those are all valid and impactful ways to spread good.
You know, speaking of spreading good, I was talking to a friend the other day who was feeling really down about the state of the world.
Mm,
There's so much negativity in the news, so much conflict, and it's easy to feel powerless.
yeah.
I shared this concept of focusing on the small acts of kindness,
Mhm.
and it really seemed to resonate with her.
Yeah.
It's like a reminder that we each have the ability to create positive change no matter how small.
I love that you shared that story. It's so true. And
Thanks.
the cumulative effect of all those seemingly small acts of goodness,
Right.
well, that's what truly has the power to change the world. It can feel overwhelming to think about tackling big global issues,
Yeah.
but focusing on what we can control our own actions and how we choose to interact with the world, that's where the real magic happens.
Absolutely. Okay. So we've made it through all 7 areas of Rick's checklist.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing. But I have a feeling that this isn't just about checking off boxes, right?
You're exactly right. It's not about achieving some kind of perfect score or
Yeah.
comparing ourselves to others. It's about using this checklist as a tool for self-reflection and growth.
Okay.
And this is where Rick's closing thoughts become particularly relevant.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What does he say?
He talks about the importance of honest self-inventory, not just glossing over the past year,
Yeah.
but really taking the time to look at the highs and the lows,
Mm-hmm.
to celebrate the wins and acknowledge the areas where we can improve.
It sounds like he's encouraging us to be both reflective and proactive.
Yes.
It's not just about looking back and reminiscing about the year that's passed. It's about using those insights to fuel our growth and
Mhm.
intentionally create the kind of year we want to have moving forward.
Precisely. And I think what's crucial here is that Rick doesn't present this as an annual event,
Okay.
something you do only at the end of the year. He's suggesting that this process of self-reflection, this checklist mindset, as we might call it,
Right.
should be an ongoing practice.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I think we often wait until the new year to set goals and intentions.
Yeah.
But why wait? If we cultivate a habit of regularly checking in with ourselves,
Right.
we can make adjustments as we go rather than waiting until the end of the year to course correct.
Exactly. It's like having an inner compass,
Mm-hmm.
constantly guiding us back to our true north,
Yeah.
no matter how many detours we might take along the way.
I love that analogy. And, it occurs to me that this whole checklist is like a roadmap for personal growth.
Yeah.
It's not a rigid set of rules to follow blindly,
Right.
but rather a framework to help us navigate the different seasons of our lives and make intentional choices about how we want to show up in the world.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about taking ownership of our lives, recognizing that we have the power to shape our experiences, and creating a life that feels meaningful and aligned with our values.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I've gained so much from exploring Rick's checklist with you.
Me too.
But before we get too carried away, we're just about out of time for this part of the deep dive.
Yeah. You're right. We'll be back in a moment to wrap up our exploration of Rick's work and share some final thoughts with our listeners.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Rick's year-end checklist. We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from the concept of spiritual milestones to the importance of soul prosperity,
Right.
and even how we can make a difference in the world through small, consistent actions.
Mhm.
It's been an amazing journey so far.
It really has. And I have to say, I've been so impressed by how thoughtfully you've been engaging with these concepts.
Right.
You're asking all the right questions, and I think our listeners are really benefiting from your insights.
Well, I have to give credit where credit is due. You've been an incredible guide through this material.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on how to approach the end of the year and honestly, how to approach life in general.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
As we wrap up our exploration of Rick's work, I keep coming back to one key takeaway that I think is so valuable for our listeners.
Oh, I'm curious. What is it?
It's the power of intentionality. Rick reminds us that true progress, whether it's spiritual, financial, physical, or in any other area of our lives, it doesn't just happen by chance.
Right.
It requires conscious effort, a commitment to growth,
Yeah.
and a willingness to ask ourselves those tough questions and make adjustments as needed.
That's such a powerful point. And, it ties back so beautifully to that idea of seasons that we talked about at the beginning of the deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
We can't control the season we're in,
Right.
but we can absolutely choose how we show up,
Yeah.
how we learn and grow, and how we make the most of each moment.
You said it perfectly. It's about taking ownership of our lives and recognizing that we have the power to shape our experiences.
So this has been a really unique and insightful deep dive.
Yes.
Huge thanks to everyone for joining us on this exploration.
Yes, thank you.
And I have to say, even if you're not coming from a religious background, I think we've uncovered some real gems in Rick's work. That checklist framework,
Right.
those thought-provoking questions, they offer valuable insights for anyone who's serious about personal growth. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. It's a testament to the fact that certain principles are universal and can resonate with people from all walks of life.
Okay, so before we say goodbye,
Yes.
I want to leave you with one final thought. To ponder building on Rick's work, but adding our own deep dive spin.
Okay.
Don't wait for the new year to start making changes.
Mm-hmm.
You can start right now. Choose just one area from those 7 we explored where you're going to make some intentional progress in the coming weeks.
I love that.
Think of it as a little gift to yourself, a commitment to your own growth and well-being.
All right.
Maybe it's starting a gratitude journal, finally having that difficult conversation you've been putting off, or signing up for that online course you've been eyeing.
What a great challenge. I'm excited to hear what our listeners choose to focus on.
Me too. Remember, the power is in your hands. You have the tools, the insights, and most importantly, you have the ability to create positive change in your life, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.